Good morning and welcome to episode 425 of the show. Today is another daddy daycare recording. If you don't know what that means, then after you're done with this session, you can skip back to the last episode where I gave a brief intro, and that would explain to you why you can hear children around and the television on as I'm making this recording. So that will give you the context. But for those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a while, this comes as no surprise. So I think for the regular listener, we can get on to today's topic for the show. Now, when socializing and networking, it helps when we have useful questioning frameworks to get the conversation rolling. Now, why is it necessary to have a question led framework? That's because no one, quite frankly, is interested in listening to your favorite topic, which is talking about yourself. And I know we've all been in that situation at a birthday party or at a networking session or at some other social event where there's this guy or this girl who feels like they are the life of the party, and they want to regale us about everything perfect in their life. How their career is on point, how their business is on point, how their relationship is on point, how their kids are on point, how everything in their life is on point, or this is what they are interested in, or this is their political philosophy, or this is their religious take on this or on that. And they can spend an hour just talking about themselves. So we've been at those events, and so we know that these people exist. But to be honest, yes, these people can hold the floor for a while, and it might be entertaining listening to them, go on and on and on and on about themselves, their successes, their businesses, their interests, their family, their religion, their beauty regimen, everything that they can come up with. But the truth is, after a while, no one is really interested, because none of us just want to go and sit down there and listen to a social butterfly just drone on and on and on and on and on. So rather, instead of focusing on what to say and how you're going to wow people and the brilliant insights that you're going to give at the networking session, at the birthday party, or whatever, you should come up with a simple list of questions to ask the other person and to ask the other people to get them talking about their favorite topic, which is themselves. So, for those of you who've met me in person, I'm sure you can attest to this, that I think I do a pretty good job of letting you talk about yourself and your interests and things like that. But eventually, you flip the table, and then I'm sure after a while you realize, like, oh, okay, this guy's actually lost in the conversation now. So it happens to me, it happens to everyone, it happens to the best of us. When we talk about ourselves, we can drone and we can go on, and that's the reason why those people exist. Those people who are oblivious to the fact that they've been talking for 1 hour about how wonderful their kids are, and maybe it doesn't cross their mind that people are interested in other things like their own children. And when I say there, I mean the listeners. So, where was I? Oh yeah, so we should come up with a list of questions to get people talking about themselves, other topics that they're interested in. And the goal for doing this is because when people are emotionally invested in the conversation, because you've let them talk freely, not only will they think you're a brilliant conversationalist, and that's one thing that I find really funny. In fact, the last time that this happened to me was at a social event. I was meeting one of my wife's colleagues, and we spent a lot of time talking about her and her work experience, her relationships, ideas about government and the state, all kinds of things. I mean, basically, it was me just asking questions, moving the conversation along, trying to figure out, trying to get to know her, stuff like that. And then at the end of the evening, she turns around and she says that I'm such a brilliant conversationalist, and she would love to hang out with me again some other time. And that's the paradox, or that's the funny thing about how these things work. You engage the other person, you get the other person to talk about their own interests, you get them to talk about their own motives, things that they are interested in, and they think that you are the brilliant conversationalist. So that is one of the side effects, and that's the reason why I recommend that you use a question based strategy. So where was I? Sorry, I got lost in remembering the conversation that I had with my wife's colleagues. What was I? Gosh, I've lost my train of thought. I really should start writing these things down. Okay, well, anyway, let's see if I can wing it from here. So, they're going to think that you're a brilliant conversationalist, and then also it's going to give you all the information that you need to figure out if this person is worth building a relationship with after the event. Because, after all, that's the whole point of networking. That's the whole point of socializing, and that's the whole point of why we go to these things. I mean, of course, sometimes you go there because it's been a stressful week. We want to get tipsy or want to get drunk, and we have to have a really good time. But for most of the time, the reason why we're heading out to these mixers, networking events, socializing events, whatever it is, Abuja Wedding Planners Association meeting, whatever. The reason why we're going for these things is to try and figure out who could be an asset to us and who is worth building a relationship with in the future. And you're not going to get all that information if you spend 1 hour trying to charm the whole room into thinking you have the perfect kids or you have the perfect business. But rather, if you talk about to the other people about how their businesses are doing, how they're balancing family and work life, how their kids are doing, then you're going to get a sense of, okay, this person, she's a cool girl, she's an okay chap, this would be a nice person who could be an asset in the future, this is how our business interests are aligned. After we're done with this networking session, let me collect this girl's number, let me collect this guy's number or the Instagram handle so that we can ping and chat and build a relationship independent of what it is that we have going on here at this networking session. So, asking the other person questions is going to get you to that point quicker. If you talk about yourself all evening, you know absolutely nothing of the 20 or the other 30 people who are there that evening. But if you go around and ask a couple of questions, if there are 30 people there, it's possible that you might have 5 or 6 fruitful conversations where you get a good sense of who they are, and maybe out of those 6 people, you figure that 2 people worth building relationships with later on, and out of those 2, maybe end up making a ton load of money with one of them, and then that is time well spent. But you're only going to get those results if you focus on asking the other person questions. Now, another reason why I say we should go with asking questions, and one of the chief benefits, is because when you're worried about what you're going to say, then networking and socializing is going to be nerve-wracking. Because let's face it, the average person can't come up with enough conversation topics for a 1-hour event. Like I said, at this 1-hour event, you could meet up to 30, 40 people, maybe have conversations with 5-10, but to think of 5-10 interesting topics to hold somebody's attention for 10 minutes at a stretch, it's nerve-wracking. And in fact, for some people, the thought of it is exhausting. But rather, if you have the right questions or the right conversation primers, then networking is going to be a breeze. So the whole thing is going to be easier if you just have a few questions, because one question leads to another, one question flows to another, and both of you open up areas to mutually explore different things that come up with the conversation. It doesn't have to be that hard. We've been having conversations since primary school, or maybe nursery school, because it looks like my son has really engaging conversations even at the nursery school level. So some of you are quite good at this thing, having conversations, so don't worry. Just start with a couple of questions, and then things will flow. And then another thing is, even if you only have 1 or 2 questions, it's fine. You don't have to think of 10 or 20, because you can start conversations with everyone in the same way, and each conversation is going to flow authentically into something unique and into something interesting. And let me repeat, just in case you didn't get that. Yes, it is possible to have 1 question only for the evening and ask everybody the same question, but the conversation is going to flow into different ways. You're going to explore different topics, and you're going to have really unique and interesting conversations. Now, for instance, let's say you come in there with 1 question, how do you know Khadija? So in this case, let's say Khadija is our host. I'm sure you guys have noticed I've gone beyond Kunle and Kemi, and now I'm saying Khadija. That's because, not because I'm a Muslim or any particular reason. It's just that I found myself cycling through some names. So there was a time when I went through the Igbo names, and I got through to Ogedengbe, and then Kunle and Kemi, and so now let's just move on to Khadija, and I don't know. By the time I exhaust Khadija, we'll see what other name I can come up with. So the question could be, how do you know Khadija? In this case, Khadija being the host who got everybody here together. Now you're going to get different responses from everyone in the room. From one person, you're going to get the answer, we went to the same primary school. And from there, that simple answer, you're going to get into interesting topics about growing up in Port Harcourt, what else? Like business and career interests that they have in common. And that's one way that the conversation can flow from that simple question, how do you know Khadija? And the answer is we went to the same primary school. And you can end up talking about childhood, Port Harcourt, growing up, business, career, stuff like that. Now, another answer could be, I don't really know her, and I'm not sure why I was invited to this room full of lawyers. Now, let's assume that you're not a lawyer in this case. And in this case, now both of you can bond over being the only non-lawyers in the room, and you guys can end up gossiping like we Nigerians like to do about how lawyers have failed the Nigerian Republic, or how lawyers are unethical, or whatever it is that we can bond over. That can be a nice little secret for the evening. In fact, it might even spark some interesting, playful, contentious conversation at the evening. That whole waiting lawyers, they do self. Well, for those of you who are not Nigerians, waiting lawyers, they do self. That means, how will I paraphrase it? What do lawyers really do? So the jab behind that comment is lawyers are of no use, practically. Anyway, so so the answer, I don't know her. I don't even know why she invited me here. I'm not even a lawyer. So it can still lead to some interesting conversations. Now, another answer could be both of us met in Unilag. Both of us met after Unilag when we were both interns at KPMG, or interns at Union Bank, or interns at, whatever, fill in the blank. And in that case, the conversation can now flow around both of their mutual interests, or both of your mutual interests in research. Let's say we're at that KPMG thing, because I think KPMG interns are supposed to help with research. If you're an intern at one of those consulting think tanks, I'm assuming that that's what KPMG is. If I'm wrong, then please forgive me. Didn't work in KPMG. And yeah, my brother knew some KPMG people because he was a biz admin grad, but I never flowed in those circles, so I don't know what KPMG does. In fact, I should go Google it after this. So anyway, you guys might start talking about mutual research interests or business interests, or the different principles that you had while you guys were interning, or rather while they were interning, because this happened even in legal circles, because my first background, my academic background is in law. So these things happen a lot. You're like, oh, you worked at Udoma and Udoma. Okay, I remember this guy. This person was the principal manager then. This person was the practice manager. This person was this. This person was that. How is Madam this? How is Madam so on? So, and you see opportunities for conversation flow around there. Now, these are just examples of how one question, how do you know Khadijat, can give you drastically different and interesting conversations that can flow all night long. Now, even though it's possible that one question can give you all these conversations, I don't recommend that you use the same question all night to start the conversation, because after a while it could feel bland or emotionally flat to begin the conversation the same way, and it might taper your enthusiasm. So if you are one of those people who is okay with freestyling and being creative, then the same conversation might work, but the average person might get tired after using the question, how do you know Khadija? Using that 2 or 3 times in a row, the average person might get tired and lose some steam. However, the most important thing to remember out of all this talking that we've done so far, as we've gone over 10 minutes, is to remember this: that to get the ball rolling in networking and social events, you don't have to think of clever things to say all the time. Stop giving yourself that headache. Stop giving yourself that stress. Stop thinking of clever things to say all the time. So just come up with a few questions, figure out who is in the room, figure out what they're interested in, how your interests align, and that's enough conversation fuel to last you the whole evening. Because remember, the whole point of being at networking events is not to convince everybody that we're great and we're successful and that we're a useful resource to have. It's to try and figure out who is here in the room, who is great here, who is wonderful here, who is going to be a useful resource here, who should I invest the time in getting to know at this event, so that I can build profitable relationships once we're done with the alcohol and the good food and the good company. So thanks for listening to today's recording. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.